I walked into court alone, holding nothing but a thin folder and a quiet certainty that no one in that room understood. Across from me sat my wife, her expensive attorney, and the man she had chosen to replace me. They looked relaxed, almost entertained, like the outcome had already been decided before the judge even stepped in. Her boyfriend leaned closer and muttered just loud enough for others to hear that I could not even afford a lawyer, and a few people let out quiet laughs that echoed longer than they should have. I did not react to any of it because I had not come there to defend my image. I had come to dismantle theirs. My wife avoided stopping the mockery, which told me everything I needed to know about how she saw me now. To her, I was already finished, already defeated, just a man sitting alone at a table meant for someone with no power. Most people believe that when someone shows up without representation, it means they have nothing. That assumption is exactly what I needed. When the judge entered, the room shifted into routine order, and everything began like a predictable script. Her lawyer stood up first, confident and polished, delivering his opening argument with the kind of rhythm that only comes from years of rehearsed success. He painted me as irresponsible, unstable, and careless with finances, presenting a version of me that sounded convincing if you had never met me. I sat quietly, taking notes, letting him build his case without interruption because timing matters more than noise. Halfway through his statement, the judge raised a hand and interrupted him with a calm but pointed question. He asked if the attorney understood who he was speaking against. The lawyer hesitated, clearly confused, and for the first time since I walked in, the room grew still. My wife frowned slightly, as if something had shifted that she could not yet identify. The laughter had disappeared, replaced by curiosity and a hint of uncertainty that I could feel settling in. I introduced myself simply, explaining that I had spent years working in corporate litigation before stepping away from that world a decade earlier. I did not elaborate much, just enough to let the weight of that information sink in. I confirmed that I intended to represent myself fully, and the judge accepted it with a measured nod. That was the moment the energy in the room changed, subtle but undeniable, like a current running beneath the surface that no one could ignore anymore. Her lawyer adjusted quickly, trying to regain control, but the confidence he carried earlier now felt slightly forced. He continued presenting financial summaries and selective documents meant to support his claims, carefully arranged to tell a one-sided story. I let him finish without interruption, knowing that stopping him too often would make me look defensive. Instead, I waited for the right moment, the precise opening where everything he built could begin to collapse. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up calmly and placed a single document on the table. I told the judge that we should start with the timeline, nothing more, nothing less. The document was simple, clean, and direct, but it carried more weight than an entire stack of papers. I watched as it moved from the clerk to the judge and then to her lawyer, who studied it with growing focus, his earlier confidence beginning to crack. I directed attention to a specific section where consistent financial transfers were listed, each one moving money from my account into a third-party account. The pattern was steady, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. The judge asked who the recipient was, and I remained silent, allowing her lawyer to answer. He struggled, calling them personal transfers, but his voice lacked certainty. That hesitation was enough to shift the balance further in my favor. I explained calmly that these transactions directly contradicted the claim of financial irresponsibility being used against me. My wife shifted slightly in her seat, a small movement that revealed more than words ever could. Her lawyer tried to dismiss the transfers as irrelevant, but I pressed him to explain them instead. He paused, and that pause spoke volumes because in a courtroom, even a second of uncertainty can expose everything. Then I introduced another document, one that detailed authorization logs tied to those transactions. As it passed through the same hands, I watched the realization spread across his face. The transfers had not been initiated from any device registered to me, and the timestamp showed they occurred while I was documented to be at work. The judge leaned forward, now fully engaged, and asked the question that mattered most: whose device had been used? I did not answer immediately. Instead, I placed the next document on the table, showing the device registry and login history. The silence in the room grew heavier with each passing second as the truth revealed itself without needing explanation. The device was registered to my wife. Her composure broke just enough for everyone to notice, and for the first time, she looked vulnerable instead of certain. The judge asked her directly if she was aware of the transactions. There was a long pause, one that seemed to stretch far beyond a few seconds, before she finally answered yes. That single word ended any possibility of denial. Her lawyer sat back, no longer presenting a confident narrative but trying to calculate damage control that had already come too late. The room felt different now, heavier, grounded in facts rather than assumptions. I placed the final document down, outlining a drafted agreement that had been prepared between her and the man sitting beside her. It detailed plans to transfer jointly owned assets after a favorable ruling based on the very narrative they had attempted to build against me. I let that information settle before pointing out the third party involved, turning my attention directly to the man who had mocked me earlier. The room went completely silent as everything connected. What had started as a simple case of alleged incompetence was now clearly something else entirely. It was coordinated, deliberate, and calculated over time. The laughter from earlier felt distant now, replaced by the undeniable weight of what had been exposed. In that moment, it was no longer about perception or storytelling. It was about evidence, and evidence does not bend to opinion.